from the sky, 'cause it's that old devil moon in your eyes.
Marty Henne sings and plays the classics. The Gershwins, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart, Harold Arlen, and Yip Harburg, with individual shows dedicated to each of these wonderful writers. But it's not just Marty's easygoing style and voice, or his exceptional artistry at the piano that makes him so special. The amazing thing is his encyclopedic storehouse of unknown lyrics and the stories he tells about the people whose music he sings.
George got even with him. It took him a while, but he got even. They were on a train going to a concert in Chicago, and they had to share a sleeping car. Well, Oscar, with all his neuroses, could not sleep on the top bunk. He had to sleep on the bottom bunk, so he got there an hour early, laid all his clothes out neatly on the bottom bunk, went to the bar car for a drink, came back 45 minutes later. By the time Oscar had reappeared, George had arrived. George had taken all of Oscar's clothes neatly from the bottom bunk, put them on the top bunk, and George was laid out in the bottom bunk. Oscar walked into the sleeping room and said to George, "George, why did you do that?" George Gershwin finally got even with Oscar Levant, and it still showed his ego. He looked at Oscar and he said, "Oscar, that's the difference between talent and genius."
But perhaps the most special thing about Marty Henne is his warmth and his uncanny ability to make an audience feel as if they were sitting with him in his living room. Marty truly sings to them and talks to them, and they respond and sing and talk to him.
You know, it's an interesting fact of musical life that some of the most wonderful songs written about cities around the world were not necessarily written by natives of those cities. For example, I Love Paris, written by Cole Porter of Peru, Indiana, or Autumn in New York, beautiful song about Manhattan, written by Vladimir Dukelski from Moscow, Russia. But for Yip Harburg, I would like to do the song that for him actually tells you what life is all about for Yip Harburg. 2, 3, 4. It's only a paper moon sailing over a cardboard sea. Sing along if you like. It wouldn't be make-believe.
Just watch Marty perform, and you know immediately that he has as much fun as his audiences.
Well, for Paulette Goddard, after she left him for Charlie Chaplin, George Gershwin wrote the following song. When he was on Kiowa, he heard music coming from a church. George wandered into that church and heard the congregation singing the great American spiritual, "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child." Well, in the heart and hands and mind and pen of the genius that was George Gershwin, that spiritual, in Porgy and Bess, became Summertime. But I'm going to tell you a quick story. I don't know if you were aware of this, but Somewhere Over the Rainbow was almost never in the movie of The Wizard of Oz. The geniuses at MGM Studios decided that that song, that beautiful, wonderful song, slowed down the movie and took it out of the movie after the first preview. Well, Yip Harburg, Harold Arlen, Judy Garland, Arthur Freed, who was the producer, went to see God, Louis B. Mayer, and said, "Please, you must put this song back." And the compromise they reached was Songs have verses and choruses, and as I like to say, verses are that part of a song that nobody knows, that comes before the part of a song that everybody knows. Well, this song had a verse and a chorus that was in the movie, and the compromise was the verse will go, but the chorus can stay. So they cut the verse, but we will do the verse for you tonight, a very seldom heard verse that is the beginning of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. When purple clouds darken up the sky, there's a rainbow highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a place beyond the sun, just a step behind the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once.